Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. We're going to be talking about 5 free plugins that I actually use in my production, and some of them are pretty old and you're going to be very aware of them, and you're probably expecting me to pull out 5 new ones out of the bag, but to be honest, these are tried and tested and they work really well. And if there is a plugin that you didn't know about, let me know in the comments. It'd be interesting to see which ones you haven't heard of. So we can see on screen there's a selection of them here. We've got LUFTIKUS, Frontier, the Transient Shaper from Kilohertz, and then we've got the TDR MOLOTOK and TDR Nova. And first up we have LUFTIKUS. This one is basically the same as the Mag EQ4 that you get with the plugin Alliance. I have the Mag EQ4 and done some testing back and forth. You get the same results, and I've seen people have done testing and said it's sort of identical. Obviously the numbering different, but it is roughly the same plugin and it's absolutely free. And probably one of the big takeaways is if you create an edit like that and you just want to return it to 0 and start again, you can double click and it goes back, something that the Mag EQ4 I don't think has. So just to quickly test that, let's turn up the same one. You can see double click, it doesn't return it, so win-win for LUFTIKUS. So typically where I'd use LUFTIKUS is on things like percussion, maybe on melodies to bring out some of the sparkle out of them, and definitely sort of in the mastering stage where you just want to do some generic gains on certain areas of the track. And with that you can see there's a mastering switch, and when we switch that you can see instead of having 0.0 as a reading, we just have numbers 1 to 10. So from that you can see that I've just brought out some of the crispiness. We didn't really need to edit these two here, but we've brought out some of the upper mids and obviously the top end there to just bring out a little bit of the sparkle and the crispiness of that sound, depending on what you're trying to do, of course. And quickly let's test this out on the kick drum here. So with the kick drum, I'm typically looking at boosting the low end a little bit just to get it nice and round and warm, because that's typically how I like my kicks. And then just a little bit of sparkle on the top. So I've gone for the 10K option, and you could see I just cycled through those different options till it sounded right. So I'm just kind of doing it by ear in the headphones. And just before I forget, LUFTIKUS is a great way to learn EQ and train your ears. That is probably the most important part about music production and creation, is training your ears and not relying on a visualizer to show you what's there, because you start making edits based on what you can see, and that is just wholly wrong. Next up we have Frontier. Now this one I tend to use on mastering channels and bus channels the most. Maybe sometimes other areas like on basses and things, because it adds a nice little bit of warmth, but really on sort of like bussing everything together, because it does a really good job. And obviously it's free, which is just outstanding from D16 to provide this for free to everyone. So now this is on the stereo out, as you can see up here, and you can see it's very sensitive as well. So we have some options for left and right independent and mid channels. We're going to leave it on left and right because we're doing stereo. And then we have release on fast, medium and slow. I'm going to leave it on slow because we are doing this on the entire track. So what I'm looking for when I'm coming to mastering is just to really make that needle move up to that first mark as a maximum, and kind of not go over too much. But let's see how this goes, because this is really an unfinished track that we're demoing. So you can see it's coming in quite hot here at the moment. So I'm going to just manually attenuate the gain here, and I'm just going to put this down minus, let's put -9. So I've just used the gain on the master out and turned it down by 9 dB. So I'm just bringing it up to a level that sounds quite nice. Then obviously we can just bring up the gain here. And really what Frontier is doing is just gelling everything together. It's like a gentle glue compression, and you can see it how sensitive it is. It works really nicely on stuff like this. And I always recommend this. I use this in my tutorial series that I do with various companies. This is something that I always use on sort of a demoing a free version of a mastering chain. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust this. The kick is coming through too loud. I must have hit something by accident on the fader, so I'm just going to rebalance the kick in the mix. And just before we finish up on Frontier, one of the things I like about it, it softens the highs a little bit. So you can hear that the highs roll off a little bit if you go and have another listen. And it just sounds a lot nicer when it's bringing everything and all the elements together. So that is another reason why I choose Frontier. Next up, we have the Transient Shaper from Kilohertz. So this is a really simple and easy way to get a little bit more attack out of claps or anything sort of percussive, and that is including kicks as well. And I like to use this on my kick drums. So let's apply this to the kick that we have here. And from that, you can see attack, pump, and sustain is going to be the click, body, and sort of like the thump or the tone of the kick where it's tuned to. And you can control those individually by having the attack being harder. We can use the pump in either direction, so we can actually reduce the body, or we can increase the body. And the same with the sustain, we can increase the tone of the kick or reduce that tone. And from that, we've got a thicker kick drum, but very tight and controlled at the same time. So very useful tool, and you can hear that the Transient Shaper plus all of the other free Kilohertz plugins are essential to sound design. If that's really what you're into, simple looking plugins to use in your production, or if you're a sound designer and want to shape sound, all of those are sort of essential for that sort of stuff. So, and they're really, really good. Then we have MOLOTOK from Tokyo Dome Labs. Now, this is probably my favorite of all the plugins. It's one of the first I actually got my hands on when I was looking through the free stuff, and it's just so versatile and just has a really good sound and really good response to sound. Just as a really quick thing, we can use this as a compressor on an individual instrument level, or we can use this on a bus level, or we can use a combination of both. My favourite part of this particular plugin is the selector switch here from Alpha, Beta and Sigma. So Alpha is basically a normal compressor, it just reacts to the settings that you set here. Beta is more towards doing sort of like mastering and bus channeling, so very similar to Frontier in that matter. And then Sigma is something where the signal is delayed as it's come in, so things with hard attacks like say kick drums and percussions, all that sort of stuff, basically are going to pass through untouched, and then the rest of it's going to be compressed. So that can become quite handy when you're using it on percussion. And obviously if you want to, you can select in between as well, so you can have a little bit of the best of both. And then we have the usual controls, so you'll see the threshold, attack, release, and then the ratio up here. So we've got them standard controls that we're all familiar with. The makeup gain, we can have some dry mix mixed in there as well, and we also have some knee control over here. And if you want it to do auto gaining, just click delta here and it'll sort that out for you without having to do anything. So let's just do a quick demo of this. I'm not going to show you everything it can do, but just so you can hear how it sounds. And from that, you can hear the 3 different types there, especially that sigma one where it's delayed. You can really hear that in there, but you'd have to dial the settings in different. I did over compress it with a threshold there just to really give you an idea of how this works. And just before we finish up, I think another reason why this is a good teaching aid for me to teach people how to make music is we get visuals here. So you can see on the makeup gain, I boosted the makeup gain, not just by listening to the sound and trying to A and B it on and off to get the sort of same signal levels, so when you turn it on and off you can hear realistically what the compressor is doing rather than it just being louder, but you get a nice little animation here of how much it's actually reducing by. So you can see that's compressing a lot more, and we can just turn this up till it's reaching 0, and that'll be the same level as when it came in if you turn this off. You can see it's going a little bit past it still, but you can hear that is a much easier way to actually visualize how things are happening. And finally, we have TDR Nova, and this is probably the best EQ that you can get outside of stuff like Pro Q3 and FabFilter and various other EQs that are very similar. So let's give this a shot. We can just turn on, say, the high pass. Let's just say we want this to be at 50 Hertz. We can choose any slopes from 6 dB to 72. And the same with the low pass here. We can do that the opposite way. And then we have some bands here. We have 4 bands that we can turn on and off, and we can set up just like we can do on Pro Q3 or similar EQs. And we got Q, frequency, and gain down here. And we can also switch these out to be shelves if we wanted to be. And the 2 pro features really that I think are included in this is the ability to be able to do mid and side, which is sum and difference in this case, and we have dual mono as well. And the other one, in my opinion, is going to be this threshold button down here. And what that does is the sort of gain reduction that Pro Q3 does. So if we click this, say 3:1 ratio on there, and then I can bring the threshold down, and you can see we start to get gain reduction on the frequencies. So we can just control the overall sound without having to actually put a compressor on there if we didn't want to. If we just wanted a little bit of control, just to control those peaks that are coming through, we can do it here within the EQ. And that is a pro feature in my opinion, something that you can pick up for free, and you can do that. That is pretty insane and great by the actual developers there as well. So with that said, I do encourage you to go and check out Tokyo Dawn Labs. They have a few other plugins in there as well that are great. I think they have a great limiter as well. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has earned your subscription. It does help the channel along, and it keeps me doing all the things I love doing about teaching music to everyone out there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.